Hello, today I'm going to cover part 2 of working with the builder's foam as an alternative relief project. This is the piece that I showed you yesterday. I went ahead and gessoed it, so I put a coat of primer on this. And then we'll also print this one. This was the demo one that I did. I remember I drew the eye on there, blocked off the spray paint, and then it eats away at the other areas here. And this was the piece of plastic, the little template that blocked things off. This was that mesh screen. So we'll see how these things ink up. One thing that I didn't mention last time that I think is nice is that this material is both readily available. You can get it at a hardware store. It's relatively inexpensive, especially if you compare it to, say, linoleum or wood. It's cheaper than that. And then also it has the flexibility of being able to cut it into shapes. So you could do a shaped piece like this and then draw or work into it with gesso to block out, to mask, or one of those drawing tools where you could lay materials out, spray paint. So it has that kind of flexibility in being able to be shaped. So here is my tools that I'm going to use. I've got my brayer to ink up. I've got my Speedball Relief water-based ink. This is black. And I've got my spoon. I'm going to ink this one up first. One thing I didn't mention is I think this art period here is going to be something that we talk about in art history books, how people are kind of getting shifted in this period and not being able to get access to maybe regular studios and not access to print presses, that sort of thing. So this is actually, for me, I've been doing these collages and drawings that are based on floor plans, thinking about like isolation and architecture and being in your home and our response to architecture in these times. I think everyone is maybe thinking about how this period shifts their artwork a little bit. So if you look at this, this was a bit of one of those, just as a demo print, was meant to look a little bit like a floor plan. So I'm going to take my ink here, roll out a bead of it. So I'm going to put out a bead first. I'm going to take one of these little matte chips and spread a nice little even layer of it out onto my glass slab. If you're doing this at home and you don't have a glass palette, you could use a piece of mat board or plastic to roll your ink out. I'm going to take my brayer. Everyone should have a brayer. I'm going to ink this up. Listen to that sound. Doesn't that sound nice? Kind of brings you home to the print studio when you hear that, doesn't it? Sounds like, that's right, bacon sizzling on the frying pan. So we're going to ink this up. I've got a nice even black layer there. You hear that? And now I'm going to just go ahead and start inking up this foam. And you can see right away what it does is it prints the raised areas. So that's rolling up black. The area that the spray paint has eaten into is staying, is recessed and it's staying white. And so that'll be the white or the color of the paper that you printed on. So I'm just kind of recharging this. Kind of going back and forth. You get a nice even layer. Those of you that were in Printmaking 1, this is similar to inking up those large wood cuts that we did. And so this is an alternative process. Instead of having to carve the wood block, we're allowing the spray paint to do some of the carving for us. So you can see my image is starting to develop there. You can see the raised areas are inking up black. The recessed areas are not picking up the ink. And the reason I gessoed this, I mentioned that I gessoed the block once it was finished, is just to kind of even things out, and also that way the ink really sets on the surface of the plate as opposed to getting absorbed into the builder's foam. So it's not a requisite. You can kind of skip that step, but I think it gives you a nice consistent even layer in case There's some areas maybe that have a little bit of spray paint, or maybe there's some areas that are just the blank builder's foam. It gives you a better evenness. And if you want, it adds a nice kind of texture too, because you could use the gesso and the brush strokes as creating a kind of soft, hazy texture in your print. So I've got this pretty much well inked up.